Football is officially back 1 hour from right now. Chiefs Ravens kick off the 2024 season, and we're here to dive into all of the action on DSM's Turf Talk season kickoff show. We're going to be wrapping up our top 10 player rankings to kick off the show. We're going to give you guys our top 10 power rankings heading into week 1, our Super Bowl and playoff picks before the season starts, as well as our player award predictions, MVP, offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year, that and so much more before we get into the game tonight and give our best bets, our predictions, and so much to get into. Guys, if you are new to the channel, if you're watching on Twitter specifically, we greatly appreciate you. But do yourself a favor, do us a favor, and make sure to check out the link tree in our bio. It will take you to all of our social media platforms, including the YouTube channel. That is the best spot to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up here on the screen with us. So make sure to subscribe to the DSM NFL Turf Talk YouTube channel to get involved in the conversation. I'm one half of the host tonight, Dylan Davis. To my right, my faithful co-host, Scotty, my friend, my partner. What is going on? We pre-recorded 2 episodes earlier to knock out the rest of our division breakdowns, but we're finally live, and we'll be live for 99% of the regular season here as we kick off season 3 of this wonderful show we started.
Yes, sir. Good evening, my man. I'm happy to be live here with you. It's been a minute, I guess, since yesterday morning, since we went live, but definitely been a minute since we've been live on the Turf Talk channel. So happy to be here. Happy to be discussing some actual NFL games, not just predictions tonight. Obviously, we'll start there, but ending the night with actual predictions for an actual game. So looking forward to this Chiefs-Ravens matchup. Obviously, looking forward to tomorrow night even more with the Eagles and Green Bay down in Brazil. We'll be back for that one. We're gonna focus on the game tonight once we get there, but we will be back here tomorrow for the Eagles game as well. But yeah, man, it's officially back. I'm excited beyond belief. I got my tequila drink with me. I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling really nice. So yeah, man. I even mixed. I needed some carbonation in it. I only had some pink lemonade, and I threw a little bit of a lemon Truly in there. I mean,
ooh,
we're dancing tonight. So it's gonna be fun.
And he's red cupping it. And he's red cupping it on the show here, brother. Well, here we go to season 3 Turf Talk live on the DSM Turf Talk channel. Subscribe, everybody.
Could be a grown up and get a glass, I guess. Fair enough.
No big deal, brother. But let's finish up what we started during the pre-recorded episodes, and that was doing our top 10 positional rankings between the quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, and tight ends heading into the year. We finished those up today as we got through the East and West divisions in the AFC and NFC. So without further ado, let me pop this off my screen. Let me pull up the video here and let me pause that on our top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL heading into 2024. We broke down some of it on the previous shows, but here's the full list, guys. As you can see, I don't think it's a question that anybody has Patrick Mahomes as their number 1 QB. Scotty and I have flip-flop Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson on our list at 2 and 4. Josh Allen coming in at number 3. Jalen Hurts at number 5. And then from that point on, you get a combination, a mixture of a bunch of names. You get a CJ Stroud, you get a Matthew Stafford, you get a Justin Herbert, a Dak Prescott. Only difference, and I find this interesting, man, we have the Green Bay Packer versus the former Green Bay Packer. I have Aaron Rodgers pretty high on my list. You have Jordan Love coming in at number 10. That is the only difference in terms of names on this one.
You're right.
Listen, I can get it, Scotty. I get it. I get the hype around Jordan Love, the season he had last year. Aaron Rodgers, the last time we really saw him play football, no, I'm not talking about the 3 or 4 snaps he got on Monday night last year. Before that, things in Green Bay were ending pretty badly. The year prior to that, NFC Championship, MVP, but he fell off the year after that. Green Bay had a miserable year. You knew his time was coming up at Lambeau Field. He moves on to the Jets. We know how last year started and ended pretty quickly, and now he's back. There's a lot of unknown coming off a major injury at this age. The last time we saw him wasn't pretty. I can totally understand why the flip-flop there. Just, as the show goes on and we get deeper into predictions for the season, I think everybody will understand why I'm still high on Aaron Rodgers.
Fair enough. Yeah, and this is one of those, looking at it from two different perspectives. It's just a difference, and that is the one difference. I was actually looking at both here, just trying to see what exactly we had different. Because, mind you, everybody, we did not show each other these
No.
lists coming into the show, so this is all just new to me here as well. I see we got Dak Prescott around the same. You dropped Justin Herbert quite a bit, though, right? Like, I don't know where you had him last year. I can't remember, but
Yeah, Justin
I would
Herbert
imagine
was
he was definitely.
around a 5 or 6 for me
That's what I was.
last year.
That's what I was guessing, and yeah, I guess I'm still holding out a little bit of hope of Justin Herbert. I think the thing for me is that I previously had Justin Herbert ahead of Jalen Hurts specifically,
Right.
moved him below Jalen Hurts just to give that nod, just because I think Jalen Hurts has had the winning to go along with the statistical success. Justin
Right.
Herbert has the stats, he does, but he just hasn't been able to win in the big moments. CJ Stroud, roughly the same.
Right.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
we
it's
flipped we
roughly the
we
same.
flipped
Just
Stafford and
flip-flop.
Stroud.
Yeah,
Which I think CJ Stroud, we talked about this when we broke down the AFC South. I think CJ Stroud has top 5 ceiling. Like, I think CJ
mhm,
Stroud can be that good this year, especially when you go out and add a Joe Mixon to that backfield, add Stephon Diggs to that receiving core. That Texans offense could be a lot of fun to watch.
yeah,
And the one thing I do find interesting, man, is specifically about Stroud and then your number 10 guy and Jordan Love. And tell me if I'm wrong here. And maybe it's just more social media than it is like national media and more respected people. But there's a lot of love, no pun intended. There's a lot of hype around Jordan Love and the Packers
yeah,
this year.
yeah.
And for some reason, I feel like there's this overall thought and belief that the Texans and CJ Stroud like have more to prove or might take a step back from where they were last year
I
and et
feel you.
cetera. And what I don't get about that is like why are we giving the benefit of the doubt to the one team, to the one guy who was great for half a year, but not to the other guy who
Yeah,
was the more highly touted prospect in his draft class, comes out first year, wins the division, makes the playoffs,
yeah,
does all that damage. I don't understand the conflict. I don't understand the pushback when it comes to the Texans and rather than the Packers, but
yeah.
that's whatever. But I think CJ Stroud can have a special year. Matthew Stafford, man, it's like he doesn't age. He just keeps doing it. And he's got 2
Yeah.
great receivers in Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. He's got a workhorse running back that can catch the ball out of the backfield in Kyron Williams. I love Matthew Stafford this year. Until I see that arm, that cannon officially fall off, I can never stop putting Matthew Stafford inside the top 10.
I feel that. I do feel that. I definitely wanted to show Matt Stafford some love here as well. Um, Comes in ahead of Dak Prescott for me here.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this list, right? We got everybody the same except for just Jordan Love, excuse me,
Yeah.
and Aaron Rodgers. Is there anybody else that
Was
you can
borderline?
yeah, anybody else that was right
Yeah.
there and just didn't make it?
Yeah, so at one point or another, I thought about Jared Goff for a second. Obviously, took the Lions to the NFC Championship game last year. Has kind of really revived his career since leaving LA. And in LA,
Yeah,
he took one of those teams to a Super Bowl, right? So Jared Goff is a very weird, like enigma at the quarterback position because it's
yeah,
like he kind of gets disrespected, but then by other people they overvalue him. Like I think Jared Goff within this Lions offense, it's a perfect fit. I think he can be a game manager that can push the ball down the field when needed, has a great offensive line, can rely on the running game. They use him in play action, they roll him out. And it's just a perfect situation. So, I mean, when you take your team to the NFC Championship game, you put up those numbers. You deserve to be in the conversation. And I know that kind of contradicts a conversation you and I just pre-recorded about another quarterback who has help and went to a conference championship and a Super Bowl last year. The difference is, the help just isn't quite on the same level, if you get me. So
yeah.
I just had to throw that little jab in there. No, for everybody listening, watching, Terry, I'm sorry if this hurt your feelings. Brock Purdy is not a top 10 quarterback. Brock Purdy is lucky to be inside the top 10 in the NFC alone.
Yeah. I agree, man. I agree. I didn't give one thought to Brock Purdy on this list, man. Not a chance.
And you can't
Um,
sell me on or tell me I'm biased because look at who's not at number 10 and 9 for Scotty and I on this list. You see all the gear behind me. You see what's
puts up the
on in
numbers.
Scotty's screen. He's right there.
He puts up the numbers, man. Dak, he puts up numbers. 36 touchdowns, 9 interceptions last year. Had a great season on paper, even off paper. Like in the regular season, he was great. It's when you get to the postseason, you saw what happened. He loses to a less talented Green Bay team, and that's why he ultimately comes in lower on this list, even with 4,000 passing yards, 36 passing touchdowns. Like I'm giving him probably less credit for his regular season than he deserves, but it's just how he finishes every year.
So I meant to throw this guy out there too. Kyler Murray is an interesting name that's kind of floating right around that area as well from a talent perspective. But Tua, neither of us have Tua.
The guy I was going to mention, yeah.
Is he right around there, 11, 12, 13 kind of range?
Yeah, if I had to give you 11, 12, 13, I have Rodgers, Goff, Tua written down in that order. So that's probably
another name that just popped in my head that you didn't even say right there. A guy that's really fallen off from our two lists. I know for sure we both had him last year. Trevor Lawrence doesn't cut the top 10, and we're not even really thinking about him at the moment.
That's what, honestly, if you remember the other day when we did the, what was it, the AFC South divisions.
Yeah.
It might have been the day before last, but I asked you, your thoughts on Trevor Lawrence. And the reason I asked that is because he wasn't on our top 10 list that day. He was, even looking at their division, we look at that division, we immediately look to CJ Stroud as the best quarterback in that division now. And it kind of just speaks to how far for Lawrence has fallen, honestly. So to your point, man, I wouldn't take him over Goff, Rodgers, or Tua right now. Like maybe from like a youth standpoint with like Goff and Rodgers, but even then, it's just like, man, this guy has been underwhelming. He's been very, very much above average, if that makes sense. I would call him a top 15 quarterback, but not really close to top 10, if that makes sense. Closer to the 15.
That's what you get from me, brother. And no, I'm just kidding. He's right around there for me. That's another guy. It is funny that it completely slipped my mind when you asked me who was right around 10 for me, and I didn't really go to Jordan Love at all. But he is a guy that's right there for me. It's just.
Yeah. Just need to see more.
I'm not gonna lie, I can be a spiteful person, and that may have played a role in how my list came about, because Scotty, you know my thoughts and opinions on the Packers and Jordan Love this year. And once I see everybody else start to get on the hype train, I'm going to go in the opposite direction and be a little spiteful. But nonetheless, let's move on here because we have a jam-packed show to get into. Let's get to our top 10 running backs. From about 5 down to 10, I believe, was already put out in the previous shows.
Yeah.
Between us, you have Derrick Henry, Jahmyr Gibbs, Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, and let me just remove that right there. Travis Etienne, that's correct. That's who came out from 5 to 10 for us. So we really just had to finish out 1 through 4. CMC comes in at number 1 for both of us. I go Saquon, Bijan, Brees. Scotty goes Bijan, Henry 3, Barkley 4, Brees 5. All interchangeable. Again, I actually believe this is a list. We don't have any different. Which I don't know if that just goes to the state of the position right now in the National Football League, how it's more of a passing league nowadays. There's less premier running backs. There's a lot of, duos and by committees. It's hard to really get a standout back. If you guys missed one of our shows from before, there's a couple guys that are lower than they really kind of deserve to be, but there's just some unknown and some age and injuries that go into it. Nick Chubb, pound for pound, if he comes back and he is okay, Nick Chubb is a top 3 running back in the National Football League. Like, it's just that simple. I just don't know, coming off of that injury, the injury he had earlier in his career, at this point, what he's going to look like. So I didn't want to put one of the younger workhorses in front of him. CMC, I think that's just like Patrick Mahomes. I think Christian McCaffrey is everybody's number 1 running back right now. And then you get to the younger guys like a Bijan, like a Breece Hall. You have Breece Hall a little bit, just 1 slot lower than me. I have Saquon 2 slots higher. The Saquon thing for me, man, is I do agree, like 1 through 5, those are the 5. I think 2 through 4 are somewhat interchangeable. The Saquon thing for me is a little bit just more of a projection. Him in this offense, we've never seen
Yeah.
anything like it. Like Saquon Barkley's already a top 3 to 5 running back in the National Football League with the New York Giants and Daniel Jones and that offensive line. If the Eagles utilize him like they're saying he's going to, like, dude, they're flowing out the idea that they are going to work
Make
Saquon
him the
Barkley.
guy. Yeah.
And if that feature him is what they've been talking about, and if that's the case, man, the sky's the limit for that talent. So that's why I have him so high. Bijan and Brees are just so exciting. They're so fun. They're so explosive. They're youthful. So they're definitely top 5 in my book.
Yeah, I think Darius chimed in. You said it a couple times, but I think specifically 2 through 5 are just completely interchangeable. You can put them in any order. I think we all agree CMC at the top, but 2 through 5. I mean, you could put Brees number 2. You could put Derrick Henry number 2. You could, so on and so forth. What Hunter just said there in the comments as well. Nick Chubb, even with the injury, top 3, not. I have to see it first, is what I would say, just because of the prowess, aside from Derrick Henry, of each guy in front of in front of Nick Chubb for me. They all present a significant factor in the passing game as well. Outside of Derrick Henry, every single one of these guys can do a little bit of both. I'm not saying Nick Chubb can't, just saying he doesn't present that side of things as much as the other guys. He's more of your pound for pound runner. So I do need to see him be healthy before I can put him back up in that top 5. But yeah, coming into last season, Nick Chubb would have been top 3, top 2 for me, quite honestly. So I'm with you right there. Any names here that come to mind? Because the reason I asked this, man, I'm looking at let's just say the top 10 for rushing yards last season, right? And we have, between our 2 lists, we have 1, 2. That's it. We have 2 out of the top 10 rushers on our top 10 running backs. So I think it speaks to what you're saying, is like it's hard to measure these running backs because a lot of them are not getting full-time work. Let me just read you the other guys that are in the top 10 here. So the first one, CMC, Derrick Henry are 1 and 2. CMC had 1,400, Derrick Henry 1,100. So that's the drop off from just 1 to 2, 1,400 to 1,100. So Derrick Henry number 2, Kyren Williams from the Rams number 3.
He's a guy.
Somebody I contemplated, but once again, got to see more. James Cook from the Bills. Not a guy I really thought about, I'll be honest.
I don't think James Cook's a top 10 running back.
DeAndre Swift.
No.
Number 5 here. Isn't that crazy? But another guy, you need to see it again because he's had problems in the past. James Conner, number 6. Didn't really think about him. Najee Harris, number 7. I'm actually out mentally on Najee Harris.
I know.
But he was number 7 in rushing last year. Joe Mixon, number 8. David Montgomery, number 9. And Rodney Mostert, number 10.
No, I did not think of Mostert. A-Chain I thought of more of
same.
From a talent perspective. I'm sorry, go back 1 or 2. Who just slipped my mind that I was thinking of? Oh, Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon is a guy I definitely thought about. I just looked at the change of scenery, and I think he helps the Texans out. I'm not so sure how much the Texans offense features a Joe Mixon, right? Again, I hear what you're saying, and I mean, we obviously agree. We put together the same list. So we're not so focused on last year.
Yeah, I'm not dissing you. If anything, I'm dissing both of us, I guess.
It's just the way I look at it is like you mentioned a couple guys like a Najee Harris, like a James Conner, like a James Cook, and it's like they're getting that work almost out of necessity. They're featured it within their offenses. They're getting the ball. And the way I look at it is like, if you put one of these guys we have on our list in those opportunities, who would I rather have? But Scotty, I got to jump out for 1 second. I'll be right there, man. Just keep it going.
Yeah, all good. What I was gonna say, honestly, here, looking at these running backs, I think I agree with what Dylan was saying. You plug one of these guys on our list into one of these guys' situations, like for example, you with David Montgomery. Watching the Lions last year, especially if you are a Jahmyr Gibbs fantasy football owner. Tell me you don't want to see most of David Montgomery's work going to Jahmyr Gibbs. When you look at them play, and I'm not shitting on David Montgomery. He's a good running back. He's solid. Jahmyr Gibbs is the elite talent coming out of that backfield. He's the elite talent that should get more touches this year. I hope more than David Montgomery. Now, I understand they both bring two different facets to the offense, so that's why they use them both. David Montgomery apparently got more work last year. That's why he has more yards. Obviously, Gibbs being more of the receiving type of back, the more versatile back. But I'm just using that as more of like the clear example of kind of what we have going on here. Because all of these guys, I mean, the next guy in the top 10, so two guys in the top 10 on our list of rushing yards. The next guy would be Travis Etienne at number 11, right? He comes in at number 10 on our list. But technically, by the rushing statistics, Travis Etienne is actually number 3 when it comes to total rushing yards on the season out of the guys on our list. So it is kind of crazy. I was just explaining while you were off the air there. The David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs is the best example of what we're talking about here. David Montgomery has the more rushing yards. When you watch them play, you know that Jahmyr Gibbs is the better running back. He's more versatile. He's more useful. He makes a bigger impact.
I mean, what about when Jamal Williams was in Detroit, right? And we was getting all the goal line touches and led the league in rushing touchdowns. It's like, again, if you gave Jahmyr Gibbs the opportunity in Buffalo's offense that James Cook gets next to Josh Allen, who's the more talented running back? Who would I rather have? Is Jahmyr Gibbs by a mile. So that's what it is. It's no disrespect to some of these guys. And hey, when you make the most of your opportunities, hats off to you. That's what you're supposed to do. But these are who I would take. Just had to hop off, man. Now always some car issues in the Davis and Miller household. So someone calling me their car, just get the car home, man. Just get the car home. I'm busy talking my top 10 running backs. So
get home safe.
Okay. Let's move on, man, to our top 10 wide receivers. This is the most loaded, right? This is the deepest, most difficult of the list to make. It would be more easy to do a top 30 wide receiver list, top 25 wide receiver list, because of how stacked this position is right now in the NFL. And I mean, let's be honest, everyone, if you're watching, if you do fantasy football, what's the one position that you might have 4 or 5 really good at compared to the running back position or compared to the depth of tight ends that you want to go grab? It's this position, okay? And when you come out, man, Scotty, to be honest with you, I was this close to putting Tyreek Hill number 1 on this list, even coming into this year. You factor in the quarterback issues in Minnesota right now. If we're combining what we're expecting this year, Tyreek Hill, should outproduce Justin Jefferson. But again, when you're talking talent, again, exactly. I think that's what you're kind of talking about right now, which just trying to balance that is so difficult. But
this is a balance. These rankings are a balance.
We could split them up, right? Because if you go expect to produce, Justin Jefferson might come in at number 4 heading into this year, number 5 heading into this year. But Jett is staying with number 1. That's a respect thing more so than anything. He's in his young career already just the best, establishes the best number receiver in the game. Tyreek Hill number 2, AJ Brown number 3. Love that we both put AJ up there, man, because if I was building a team, I would take him over the next 2 guys. Flipped in reverse, CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase. Devontae Adams coming in at number 6. Cooper Kupp and Amon-Ra flipped for us. And then 9 and 10 are completely different. I'm throwing a little bit more to the OGs and giving it to Mike Evans and Stephon Diggs. And you're going a little bit more young, getting paid. Brandon Ayuk and DJ Moore both got paid this offseason. And that wraps up the number 9 and 10 spots for us. But just such a deep list. So difficult, man, because like I said, like Amon-Ra and Cooper Kupp, we have them flipped. It doesn't really matter. When you get to that, it doesn't really matter, right? Well, it's so difficult to say which one I'd rather have, right? Or which one's the better receiver.
Yeah. It's funny looking at those bottom 2. You hit the nail on the head. It's kind of more the experienced guys and then the kind of the newer guys on the scene. I think when I look at these, I mean, if somebody said, no, man, you can't go on the show today with this list, you have to put Mike Evans and
Right.
Who was the other guy? I can't even see it right now.
Stephon Diggs.
Slipping
Stephon
my mind.
Diggs. Yeah.
Stephon Diggs. Yeah. If you told me like, nah, you have to put Mike Evans and Stephon Diggs on your list, I wouldn't argue too much with you there. I think both of those guys are top of their class, but I did. I went with the younger talent. I guess I went with more of like next steps, right? The next step for me with Brandon Ayuk specifically is to make it clear that he is the number one receiver.
Number one on that team, yeah.
Time to take that leap quite ahead. I think he's already done it compared to Debo, but really take that leap ahead and become that guy for Brock Purdy there in San Fran. He got paid like it. Yeah. DJ Moore, same thing. You got Caleb Williams in there, this elite prospect coming in. I think, you know, the more I think about it, the more that this kid gets talked about, and I'm talking about Caleb Williams, the more it feels like he's going to hit the ground running, man. And if he hits the ground running, that means DJ Moore is going to have the best season of his career because he's never played with a quarterback with more talent. So that is kind of the ideas there. But as far as the rest of the list, specifically the top five, I think we nailed that on the head. I actually agree.
I was going to ask you, man. I just want to throw this in there. I'm sorry.
What's up?
Did we? Because we both have them at 6. But man, on any given Sundays, Devontae Adams not the most feared player on the field. Like if he had a quarterback, if he still played with Aaron Rodgers, would Devontae Adams be the second on this list or number 3 on this list? He's so good, dude.
He's such your like prototypical wide receiver too, like his size, everything, man. He does present a different factor. It's tough. It's tough because of the production, right? Like it's so tough to rate him compared to the others. Like in reality, CeeDee Lamb could go to the top of the list or second.
I'm glad you said that. I was gonna say 1 through 8. I'll limit it to 1 through 6. To be honest with you, Scotty, any one of these guys can be the best receiver in football this year. That's how deep it is. Like there is no saying. Like I have Jamar Chase at 5. You have him at 4. A resurgent Joe Burrow year. There's no saying that Jamar Chase won't be the best wide receiver in football come week 17. Garrett Wilson's a guy that could be right there, man. They're so
Keenan Allen,
wide receivers.
Interesting. Man, I brought this up to you off the air. I want to bring it up on here. Warren's, Remy, if you're out there watching, Rams fan, this goes to you as well, my man, because Puka Nacua, he's so interesting, man. He's fucking number 4 in receiving yards last year.
Yeah.
1,486 receiving yards, 6 receiving touchdowns. 14.2 yards per catch. Top of the league in almost every wide receiver metric last year. As a rookie, I didn't put him on my list because I just need to see more. I need to see it again.
Me too.
But am I being fair to Puka Nacua? Honestly, am I being fair? Are we being fair to him? Or should he be on this list?
Nah, I mean, here's the issue with that is he had a phenomenal year. Like you said, he was top 5 in receiving yards, 4th overall. I know it's tough, especially when there's guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown who hasn't been doing it for all that long, right? Jamar Chase hasn't been doing it for all that long, Justin Jefferson, but I can't sit here in my right mind after one season of Puka Nacua and tell you that Puka Nacua is better than Mike Evans or Stephon Diggs or Amon-Ra or better than his counterpart in Cooper Kupp. Like I can't do that yet. Now, if across from Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua goes for 1,300 plus yards and 8 or 9 or 10 touchdowns this year, we're gonna have a different story come year 3. But not right now, man. Not right now. And this league's so goddamn deep. I'm not even on rosters. I'm just looking at the team logos to go through real quick. Garrett Wilson's a guy that was thrown out there. Puka Nacua is a guy that was thrown out there. I mean, in Cleveland, you have Amari Cooper, right? And across from Jamar Chase, you have a T. Higgins. Across from Tyreek Hill, you have a Jalen Waddle. Across from A.J. Brown, you have a Devontae Smith. You have a Nico Collins in Houston. Across from Stephon Diggs. You have a Chris Olave in New Orleans. DK. I'm not his biggest fan, but you have a Michael Pittman Jr. in Indianapolis. You have a DK Metcalf. I mean,
DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, like you have a Drake London. It's just the list just continues to go. You have rookies that could be on this list next year, man. A Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors, if they go out and live up to the hype and go for 12, 13, 1,400 yards this year, I mean, they're going to be guys that are right in that conversation.
Debo Samuel, a former top 10 wide receiver on our list before, right? Like maybe 2 years ago,
so,
top 10.
so deep in the league right now, man.
I agree, man.
I mean, and a guy that I wouldn't put up
really
yet,
tough,
but George Pickens, Zay Flowers, like they're both really good number one. Like,
what does George Pickens look like with a real quarterback?
Yeah. Right. And as a number one option now with Deontay Johnson going, like he is the guy. We got a Michael Pittman will be top 15. I don't disagree, man. I think it's the quarterbacks that he's had plus his like style. I don't know. Like he's always to me just been
kind
an
of
intermediate
quiet
type of guy. Yeah. Like, and a good quiet. Like he might go 9 for $110 quiet, but
maybe it's his market.
I'm not attracted to watching Michael Pittman Jr. play football. I don't know. Whereas some other guys are a lot of fun.
He had 109 receptions last year, 1152 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So he's right there. Yeah. He's in that field, you know. Like I don't know. I guess like where Eagles, where does Smitty come for you? Like what if you had a random number? Not a random, but where would
right around I think Smitty's right around top 15. I think that's where he is. I think you can make an argument for Devontae Smith to be anywhere from like 14-ish, 13, 14 to like 16-ish, somewhere in that range.
And it's funny because I feel like there's 10 wide receivers in that same range. Weirdly enough.
No, well,
maybe 5 is a better number. Maybe 5 is a better
1,000%. And there's guys we sleep on too that are getting a little older that just are so good at their crafts. A Chris Godwin's still a really good option.
Yeah.
You mentioned it. A Keenan Allen's still a really good option. Like, they just keep going, man. But to wrap up our top 10 list, we get to
Did you say Chris Olave? You might have said him earlier. Yeah, I was just gonna say he's another guy.
He's on my fantasy team too, bro. I don't disrespect. He's on there. He's on there.
I feel that. DK's another guy that didn't come to mind for me, honestly.
I know,
but
and it's
he's
crazy,
another guy that's been on there before.
It is crazy to continue to leave him out. But coming in at our tight end list, man, I do believe we just have, I think we have 2 different on this list. So to start from the top, Travis Kelce, again, I think if you go through at least running back, quarterback, and tight ends, everybody's number 1 is going to be the same or should be. Number 2, George Kittle. Number 3, we both have the young Sam Laporta who balled out last year in his rookie year. Mark Andrews returning from injury at number 4. And then in a group, we have Trey McBride, TJ Hockenson, and Dallas Goedert kind of all shifted around. You have Kyle Pitts 9. I have him at 8. And then our differences, you have Evan Ingram and David Njoku. Love them. I have a Cole Kmet and Dalton Kincaid. I kind of did my list a little differently than I went with the running back different. Like for the 2 tight ends that I had that you don't, I'm just going the position they're being put in this year. Dalton Kincaid might end up being a number 1 or 2 option in Buffalo with everything they got rid of and didn't replace. And Cole Kmet playing inside with a Caleb Williams this year with actual weapons on the outside. It's just more of a projection thing when it comes to those 2, but all around the same, man. You and I talked about the other day. Kyle Pitts is a guy here that we have at 8 and 9, has a ceiling of top 3 and just has not lived up to it. And quite honestly, if he doesn't live up to that top 5 ceiling this year, he won't even make my top 10 this year. Like it's not going to be acceptable for Kyle Pitts to be the 9th or 10th best tight end this year. If that's the case, I don't care that he was top 10. He won't make my top 10 list next year. When you are drafted as a tight end inside the top 5 of the national in an NFL draft, the expectations are lofty. And yes, you haven't had quarterback help. And yes, whatever's hasn't gone your way. The Falcons haven't been good. Well, apparently all their prayers have been answered, Scotty. Their problems have been solved. Kirk Cousins is there. If anything about Kirk Cousins, he can sling the rock. Okay. Yes, so Kyle Pitts will have his opportunities. Bijan, Drake London on the outside. He'll be a 2nd or 3rd option most weeks. And he'll have opportunities, man. I love Brock Bowers. I haven't seen him play yet, so I can't do it yet. But
I don't think he's playing week 1 even.
Oh, really? I didn't see that.
He's injured. Yeah, saw that today. But Kyle Pitts is interesting, man, and Dallas Goedert is interesting. And I can admit, I gave him. This is my last time giving him the credit that I believe he deserves, based on his talent. This is the last time I'm doing it because the production is not following because he's just always injured. And I would put him in like the same boat. They're very different standards as far as Kyle Pitts and Dallas Goedert, but I'm out here on a limb right now with Dallas Goedert. I do think talent-wise, he is a top 5 tight end between blocking, which just doesn't get accounted for as much as it should for the position, but also just the receiving factor that he presents. He just doesn't get the usage that some of these other guys get based on the weapons around him. But the main thing with him, I got to see him stay healthy. Give me a full season and let me see what that looks like. Otherwise, I'm going to have to start taking other guys over him, like the Trey McBrides and some of these younger guys down below. The Dalton Kincaid pick, I love on your side because I told you earlier, Josh Allen is at the top of my MVP list. He's going to need He's going to need somebody to throw the ball to. I think Dalton Kincaid, when you look at the list of weapons or lack thereof, he's probably the most qualified weapon that they have aside from James Cook on that roster. So I do think he's going to get a ton of work this year. I think they drafted him high for a reason. Cole Kmet, same thing. First time having like a real quarterback in Caleb Williams. Same thing I said about DJ Moore earlier. We know Cole Kmet has talent. If he gets the usage, what can he do? But the Njoku, I did want to give him his props. I feel like he's kind of underrated. But maybe a full season with Deshaun Watson. Maybe if Deshaun Watson can look anything close to what he used to, I think Njoku could have a big year. Evan Ingram, we talked about him the other day down there in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence. I think he's kind of crept in, along with Christian Kirk, kind of crept into one of Trevor Lawrence's favorite weapons. But I guess the question with Evan Ingram is, does he go up from here? Does he stay the same, or is he on that downward trend? So we'll see this year.
Yeah, no, I like both, man. I do agree. Njoku is underrated. He's even underrated not being on my list. He's a wide receiver. Like he's a tight end, but he is just you just see him streaking down the middle of the field constantly. Big body, good hands, hard to bring down to the ground. Just overall going to be really important to what Cleveland wants to do if Deshaun Watson is a viable option at quarterback this year for them to be successful. But that wraps up our top 10 list, man.
Yes, sir.
Finally I don't want to say
let me ask you this about the tight ends. Is there anybody that you could see jumping ahead? Like, could Sam Laporta potentially jump ahead of Travis Kelce? Any chance of that?
No, it's going to take a lot for anybody to jump Travis Kelce. Sam Laporta going ahead of George Kittle going into next year. It could happen if George Kittle has a mediocre year and Sam Laporta puts together a second straight, best statistic tight end season, and the Lions are very successful because of him and they go deep into the playoffs again. Then I think Sam Laporta can make that argument. There's no one going ahead of Travis Kelce. I don't care if Travis Kelce's using a cane next year. There's no one going ahead of him right now. He's the greatest of all time. So that's the tight ends. Kind of the ones that could jump. Obviously, like we said, Kyle Pitts has to be one of the ones to take a
Trey McBride.
Yeah, but I mean, he put on a show last year in his young career. But let's move on, man. Let's get to where do you want to go from here? Let's go power rankings before the game. I guess let's get into our player awards predictions. And then we'll get into our Super Bowl picks and so on, as we are just about 40-ish minutes away from kickoff here, getting you guys ready for tonight's matchup. But player awards we can run through pretty quickly. I had some fun with this. I'm not going to lie. For those of you that are new to us, we are Eagles fans. Don't know if you could tell by my background, Scotty's background, my shirt, whatever. But I had some fun with this list. Okay. So coming in at our MVP, most valuable player of 2024, Scotty, I have our very own Jalen Hurts. First of all the tools are available for Jalen Hurts to put up the numbers and have the season and get the wins and have the success that he and the Eagles are going to need for him to bring home this award. He was obviously in the running back in 2022. The injury at the end of the year heading into the playoffs, the rest kind of hurt his chances, obviously taking those games off and not being available then. And then obviously going on to the Super Bowl, he was incredible in the biggest moment. Had a down year by all accounts last year. Play calling injuries to himself, injuries to AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert, etc. Obviously all the turmoil, all the reports, all the issues this offseason, the drama, that all gets put to bed come tomorrow night when he heads out there next to his brand new toy in the backfield. That is number 26, Mr. Saquon Barkley, with AJ Brown, with a Smitty, with a Goddard, with a Jahan Dotson that Howie Roseman just traded for a few weeks ago. No more Jason Kelsey, but that's only the next evolution in Jalen Hurts' growth. I just heard Kelsey talking about it on a podcast in an interview the other day, talking about how early on in Jalen's career, he kind of helped out with, the signals and the blitz packages and everything like that pre-snap. And now it's kind of being moved on to Jalen's shoulders. That's the evolution of him, man. And I think that he absolutely goes out, balls out, Eagles ball out, and he puts up the numbers to bring home his first MVP.
Yeah, I actually love that pick.
I like it.
Yeah. That's not a horror. I mean, we talked about the Rams the other day. That's like my sleeper of the NFL. Yeah. Not really a sleeper, but just, when you look at that division, you most likely think 49ers, but the Rams could come out on the top there. But nonetheless, yeah, I love the Hurts pick. I actually have him second on my list behind Josh Allen, who I think is going to get it. It's this Josh Allen thing. It's just more of a hunch more than anything. I think there's a few other people out there that have kind of come across the same hunch. It's more based on them asking him to do more because they let guys like Stephon Diggs go this offseason. And I think when the Buffalo Bills, who I picked to win the AFC East, if they are able to win the AFC East, that means Josh Allen's playing at a very high level, an MVP level. Down the stretch last year, you saw him start to pick up the pace. He really started to play some really good football. Had the turnovers, the 18 interceptions. You never really want to see that in a season. Was that last year? 18 interceptions? I don't want to misspeak here.
Or was that 2 years ago?
That was 29 and 18 last year. So 18 interceptions, 29 touchdowns. He did tie Jalen Hurts with 15 rushing touchdowns last year. So had close to 45 touchdowns total. That's what we're talking about here with Josh Allen, a guy who I think the biggest thing for me, Dylan, that bodes well for him, especially going towards an MVP type of award, is his durability. This guy just plays. He takes hits on his body. He's able to rush. He's able to lead the team in rushes in certain games and still come out of that game and ready to go in the next one. And I think just his size in general, he's a massive guy. He gives me he almost gives me Cam Newton vibes, but he is a way better thrower than Cam Newton is. So that's what I'm looking for from Josh Allen. I think he's just going to see an uptick in his overall usage as far as what it comes to playmaking. I think he's just going to have to make a ton more plays for this team. Yeah. And when he ultimately does, it's going to look a whole lot better with the lack thereof weapons that he's working.
Oh, it means more. It means more. Like again, because my Hurts pick, we know all the help. We talk about Purdy with all the help, Goff, all the help. You look around, all these teams have help. If a guy is able to go out and put up humongous numbers and his team has a lot of success and racks up wins, when you look around and go, oh, who was he throwing to? Yeah. Well, that makes it a little bit more special.
That conversation's getting brought up. Let's say that the Bills are winning their division at the end of the season. The Eagles are winning their division. They're both playing at MVP
1,000%,
levels.
1,000%.
That's going to be the conversation that's going to be had is look at what Hurts is working with versus Josh Allen. Another guy that I think is in that situation where he could benefit if things go well, Justin Herbert. You ship out Keenan Allen, you ship out Mike Williams. If he is somehow able to get them to the playoffs now, he's going to be another guy that looks really good. Yeah. The last guy I'll mention here, because I did have Hurts second on my list for MVP. CJ Stroud is third on my list. I think he's a guy that you said it the other day, man. He's kind of gotten overlooked with Jordan Love hype, who's getting picked for MVP. But this is the guy that actually performed throughout the entire season. This is the guy with the nice-ass weapons to play with down there in Houston. Right. This is the guy that I think takes the big leap.
Which that'll get taken away from him as well, man. But that's, again, these voters, these analysts, don't contradict yourself. You and Scotty and I, we talk about this all the time, man, about when they do their top 10 quarterback rankings, and they'll leave someone off because they need to see more. They'll leave CJ Stroud off but need to see more, but they have Brock Purdy top 10.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Brock Purdy's been a quarterback for a year and a month.
People wanted Brock Purdy to win MVP last year.
Right. So don't contradict yourself. So if you're going to tell me that Jalen or CJ, they're both in the conversation, but you're picking one, they both had the weapons. You know what I mean? So you can't take one out of the conversation, but not the other.
Start comparing weapons.
My offensive player of the year, man. Again, I had some fun with this one. I have not looked at odds. I have no idea what the plus is. But again, like you mentioned, Josh Allen, because you had the Bills winning the AFC East, I think that goes with some of mine and the success I'm predicting some of these teams to have.
Yeah.
I have Breece Hall as my offensive player of the year.
I like that. That's different.
Yes, he's on my fantasy team. But I truly believe he is going to be the focal point of the New York Jets offense. I do not think they want to drop Aaron Rodgers back 35 times a game. 34 times a game. I don't think it's happening. I think they're going to run the rock. I think Breece is going to run it around 20 times, if not a little more some weeks. And you mentioned earlier when we were breaking down the AFC East, how many receptions and receiving yards this dude had last year. Even when they do drop Aaron back, he's going to play a major role in this. I do, as you know, a little spoiler later on in the show, had the Jets being successful this year. I think that's, if not the biggest reason, one of the biggest reasons why. So I go with a little Breece Hall as the OPOY.
I like that, man. I actually just looked it up here. He's plus 1,600 to win it, along with another guy that I think is right in the same boat, and that's Bijan Robinson, man. He's going to get a ton of usage. He's obviously a very versatile player. He should be in on all downs. It's just the same thing with Breece Hall. You get Kirk Cousins in there to a lesser scale. It's not Aaron Rodgers. It's still a quality quarterback, the best he's played with. And I think he's going to benefit significantly off of that. I think out of Kyle Pitts, out of Drake London, Bijan Robinson is the guy that's going to benefit the most from acquiring Kirk Cousins. The other guy, the less outside the box guy, Tyreek Hill, he's the favorite to win it. I think he could very easily put up great numbers down there in Miami again. He's a stat stuffer. You mentioned it when we were talking wide receivers. You thought about putting him at number one. There's a reason for that. He's probably the most dynamic weapon in the NFL when you talk about pure speed and not being able to keep up with this guy. So
biggest threat at all times.
He's another guy that I could see right there. CMC, obviously, CeeDee Lamb. Those are all the favorites there. But Tyreek Hill, I would say I like him out of even those guys.
I like it, man. We'll speed this up a little bit because we do have to get to so much more. So I'll run through the rest of mine, and then you can go through yours, and we'll just comment at the end. All right. I don't want to bore the people to sleep here. My DPOY, I have Myles Garrett. It's always tough when looking at Defensive Player of the Year. You can go to the front seven. You can look at a Myles Garrett. You can look at a TJ Watt. You can look at a Micah Parsons, maybe a Max Crosby squeaks in there. You go to the secondary. You could look at a guy like Sauce Gardner, right, with that talent on the back end, that personality, Pat Surtain, etc. I go with Myles Garrett. Again, I do think the Browns are going to be a playoff team this year. I think they're going to have one of the best defenses in football, and that guy leads the best defense in football. He is the ultimate game wrecker. He is the ultimate game changer. I have Myles Garrett bringing home the DPOY. My offensive rookie of the year, I am going with the overall the number one overall pick from this year's NFL draft. I don't care if that's chalk or not. I think Caleb Williams actually gets the Bears back to being relevant. They invested around him. They got weapons, DeAndre Swift, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore. He's going to be busy this year putting up numbers. My defensive rookie of the year, had to have some fun with it, Quinyon Mitchell. Not only do I think Quinyon Mitchell is going to play just about 100% of the snaps for the Eagles and be very effective at it, I'm just also not that honed in on the defensive rookies drafted from this past. There's one guy, Lufati Latu, someone like that. I know a lot of people have
Indianapolis. He's the favorite.
That's fine. I'll go with Quinyon on the back end. My comeback player of the year, I think it's obvious. I think he could just play 1 week and be the comeback player of the year. I think it's Aaron Rodgers. I think the Jets have success. He has success coming back from that injury at this age. He'll win that one. And my coach of the year, had to do it. He's under the microscope right now, deservingly so. You and I talked about maybe how he needed to be let go at the end of the year for how it ended and his team possibly quit on him. With the success I do believe that the Eagles have this year, Nick gets that award that escaped him back in 2022 when he took his team to the Super Bowl. He should have won it then. They didn't give it to him. Well, guess what? You guys wrecked him all off season long, and I'm a part of it a little bit.
Yeah.
Give him his damn award when the Eagles have success this year.
Yeah, no, I like it all, man. I'll just go through quickly here so we can get to our next segment, man. But defensive player of the year, similar here. I have TJ Watt written down. I think the Steelers are going to be better. I think they'll win a few more games this year, which should bode well for him. Myles Garrett is right next to him right here. And then, of course, Micah Parsons. These are all the favorites. These are the guys that are going to produce. We know that they're going to come out and wreak havoc on the NFL. So I know it's not like the flashy out of the box picks. It is what it is. These guys dominate consistently. Offensive rookie of the year, I'm right there with you. Caleb Williams, he's the no-brainer pick. I think Jaden Daniels, if Caleb Williams, slacks in any moment, I think Jaden Daniels could get into the conversation. But as long as Caleb Williams plays the entire season, I think he's going to win it. Defensive rookie of the year, you mentioned Latu from Indianapolis. Byron Murphy from Seattle, I think, is another guy, a pass rusher out there in Seattle. And I also have Quinyon Mitchell written down from the Eagles as well, man. It's funny. I was looking at the odds. They actually have Terrion Arnold from the Lions. He's the only other corner that has better odds than Quinyon Mitchell to win rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year. He's at plus 1,400. Quinyon's at plus 1,600. I think, like you said, man, Isaiah Rodgers Sr. out tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think this is his chance. Step up to the plate, dominate, lock your man down tomorrow. And Isaiah Rodgers won't be inserted back into that
scrubs
CB2.
down, dude.
Yeah, lock him down, man. You're gonna be locked in. And if he gets specifically locked into CB2, he might fuck around and win the award. The thing is, I feel like with these defensive player of the years, defensive rookie of the years, I think secondary players are starting to get more recognition. So I don't think this is completely out of this world.
Right.
Like if he comes out, it would take like a Sauce Gardner level rookie season for it to happen. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but there's a chance based on the reports coming out of camp. And like you said, let's just have some fucking fun with it. It's my squad. Moving on from that, coach of the year, I'm with you. I wrote down Nick Sirianni as well. Yeah. The story is set, man. It's set up for him. You've got the team. The division is right there for the taking. Go out there, get a 1 or a 2 seed. You're going to win that award, my man. At least he should. Nick Sirianni, I also wrote down Sean McVay out in L.A. I told you earlier in this show, told you last show. Surprise team, if you want to call them a surprise. Raheem Morris down in Atlanta. Obviously, we know what's going on there. And then Matt Eberflus out in Chicago. We know what's going on there. Yeah. If they can sneak into the playoffs, he'll mess around and be in that conversation. So, comeback player of the year, I think that's a no-brainer. Aaron Rodgers, as long as he plays majority of the season, he's going to get that. But I did see here, man, there are some other interesting names. Like Joe Burrow is second in odds. Kirk Cousins. I don't know. Like, Joe Burrow specifically, I just don't think of him as a comeback player, but he was injured last year. Same thing with Kirk Cousins.
I just think the Rodgers thing had so much attention, so much media
week
attention
1
all offseason last year. Then it happened immediately all year, this whole offseason. He doesn't, he's not around for mandatory mini camps. The buzz is going. He doesn't play in the preseason, obviously. Now we get back. Okay, the Jets are rolling the dice again. Can they get back to the playoffs? Can they maybe win the AFC East for the first time in a while? And if he's able to do anything close to that, then I think he runs away with it because of the hype and the attention it gathered, man. But let's move on to our Super Bowl predictions. And with that comes our seeding and playoff predictions as well, Scotty. So out in the AFC, man, I have the Kansas City Chiefs hosting throughout the playoffs again at Arrowhead. I know they didn't get the chance to do so last year. They had to go to Baltimore in the AFC Championship and take on Lamar Jackson. You and I kind of talked about that division, that schedule earlier on. I just think they run away with it. They, it's not the biggest names that pop off the paper at you, but when you go out, you bring back a Juju, you bring in a Hollywood Brown, although he's not playing tonight. You bring in an Xavier Worthy to go with a Rashee Rice, Isaiah Pacheco. They finally have a number 1 running back. By all accounts, like you said, Travis Kelce had a down year last year. That was what, 980 yards and 8 touchdowns or whatever it was.
Yeah,
So
down year.
I had the Chiefs coming in number 1. In number 2, here we go. I have the New York Jets winning the AFC East and coming away with the number 2 seed. And I'll tell you why. Schedules mattered for 2 through 4 for me. That's why. Because I looked at the Browns. We know what the AFC North is going to do to each other. They are dogfights each and every week. The Texans, we talked about the AFC South's tough schedule all day when we broke down that division. And I think the schedule will matter. I think the Jets could go 11-6 and get the number 2 seed because of how difficult and tiebreaker things might come down to in that conference. At number 3, I do have the Houston Texans coming in. And at number 4, I had the Cleveland Browns winning the AFC North division. My wildcard teams in order are the Ravens and the Bengals from the AFC North. And then I had the Bills coming in as that final wildcard spot. I think they'll all be around the same record. Again, tiebreakers will determine those. I have the Dolphins missing. You and I kind of talked about their end of the year earlier in today's show. So that's my AFC. And my NFC, I have, taking random guess, the Philadelphia Eagles being the number 1 seed, winning going 12-5 or 13-4 this year, whatever the difference is. I do have the Niners coming in second. I think they're just going to be that talented again in the regular season. Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk are back. They signed their contracts. Third, I do have the Detroit Lions. And fourth, I had the Atlanta Falcons. I know a lot of people think just because the Falcons are going to win their division, which I picked them to do so, that means they're going to win 11, 12 games and be a number 1 or 2 seed in the NFC, all because Captain Kirk's there. Now, again, I asked the question, who the fuck do people think Kirk Cousins is? Will he make them better? Yes. Will he be a better quarterback for Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson and Drake London? 1,000%. Does that automatically mean they're about to run wild through the NFC? Absolutely the hell not. So they're number 4. My wild cards in order. I had the Rams 5th. I'll give my respect right here a little bit. I'll give the Packers 6th. And at number 7, Caleb Williams and Matt Eberflus make the final wild card spot with the Chicago Bears. 2 NFC North teams coming in there, man. I'll let you go with your standings before we get to our Super Bowl picks.
Yes, sir. So I will start out in the AFC as well. I'm the same as you. I got the Kansas City Chiefs coming in at number 1. If you want to call it like a bounce back in regular season, I think they're going to be better in regular season than what they were last year. That's my simple reasoning there. And that being said, they won the Super Bowl last year, so they're going to be pretty damn good. Chiefs get the number 1 seed there. I think they're better. Number 2, I'm going to roll with the hype, man. I'm going to go with the Houston Texans with the number 2 seed. I do think, the more I've had time to think about the AFC South, the more I think they could grab a good hold of that division. And if that happens, I think they could grab that 2 seed over in
Stack
the AFC.
on some W's.
Yes, sir. Number 3, I do feel your point with that division, that AFC North. They're going to beat up on each other. I went with the Ravens with the 3 seed. I didn't want to drop them too far because I do think they still win the division. I do think they take care of business and snatch that 3 seed. The reason I put this team at the 4 seed, I went a little bit against the grain. I went with the Bills to win that AFC East division. In order to do that, I think it's going to have to be 10, 11 wins, which I think will put them down around the 4 seed. The number 5 seed, I did roll with the Cleveland Browns out of that AFC North. Number 6, I went with the New York Jets. That's with the idea, thinking that Aaron Rodgers maybe doesn't play the whole season, but misses a game here or there. He is old. So I went with them right there. And then for the last team, this is where it got really tough for me, man, because I was between a few teams, right? Thought about the Bengals, 3 teams from that division, right? I thought about the Steelers. I think they're a team that could squeak in there. Like anybody from that division, quite honestly, could squeak into the playoffs. Miami came into mind, like a 3rd team from that division. Jacksonville comes to mind, and then finally the LA Chargers. Could they sneak in somehow? Justin Herbert, like we said earlier, like could he have an MVP caliber type season? Ultimately, I went with 3 from the AFC North. I think they're the best division.
You're teasing me over there because you didn't say the Bengals the whole time. Like, did he like not even contemplate putting Cincinnati
Yeah.
in that conversation?
I went with my guy Joe Burrow. I'm hoping that he can stay healthy this year. I'm hoping that Jamar Chase, T. Higgins get back on that field. Don't worry about I don't want to say I'm not that guy. Like, you should go get your money. These guys deserve the money. I don't mean it like that. Just go out there, ball out, shut them up. That's kind of what I'm looking at there with them. But I do think that division is so good. It can counteract, right? It can be so good that these teams just beat the hell out of each other, and then all of a sudden, maybe only two or even one of these teams makes the postseason. The other side of it is that this division is so good that 3 of the 4 teams will make the postseason. So I sided with that route ultimately and went that way. But that's who I like to round out the AFC out there. Coming over to the NFC, you already know where I'm going here, man. The Eagles, as long as they stay healthy, they're going to be the best team in the conference.
Talk about it.
They're going to win their division, obviously. Yeah. I did go with the Lions at number 2. I just think the 49ers, Rams, with that division, I don't know. That division's tough. I do wonder how much they beat up on each other. I was in between 49ers and Lions 2 and 3. I ended up going Lions number 2, Niners number 3. And then I rounded it out with the Falcons at number 4, winning their division, obviously. Number 5, I went along with you. I went with the LA Rams. Like I said, I think that's that team, man. Just watch out. To be clear, the team I don't want to play in the postseason.
Right.
The LA Rams. Right. I don't want to play them. I know you said that before. Number 6, I went with the Packers. I think that was an obvious one. I think they will be in playoff contention. Maybe they can compete for their division. I'm just not, I'm not buying all the way with that. For this last spot, man, I came down to 2 to 3 teams. So Chicago is one of them. I've thought about. You kind of got me on that train. I do like what they've done there. I mentioned to you my concerns late in the season when it gets real cold. Is that a team that is like structured
to air the ball out,
for cold weather? But I do like them. Tampa Bay is another team sitting right there. And then, the third team from the NFC West. Who's it going to be between the Cardinals, between the Cardinals and the Seahawks? Could one of those teams sneak in? I ultimately didn't go that route. I don't truly believe that that's going to happen, but I do think the Cardinals could surprise. I want to pick Chicago so bad, man. I do, because it would be so much more fun than picking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like, it would be so much more fun, man.
I respect whatever you're about to do, because just like I left this team off my list, you didn't even contemplate them, and I love it. Love it.
Oh my God, I realized what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they're an afterthought. Oh my God. The Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, that cockroach fan base. Yes, they are. Yeah. They're all in.
Man, I think there's a chance there's a downhill spiral for them, man. I think they should be considered for that last spot. They should be considered for that last spot. That was wrong with me
slightly,
to not list.
Bro, I agree. Like, I just, they have no direction apparently, and just they're just such a clown organization anyway. Like,
their schedule.
Let me ask you this question. I know we have to move on here because we only have 15 minutes till the game starts, and we still have a few things to get into.
I got to get my plays in.
Yeah. Like, what was the point in going back and forth with CeeDee Lamb and allowing that holdout to go on for as long as it did, if all you were going to do was give him all the money? You just threw everything, all the chips in it. You gave him everything he wanted.
Give him the biggest contract.
Of not doing it back in fucking May or June. What was the explanation for that? They have no direction. Their 90-year-old owner thinks they're all in, but they're not wagering their future like the Eagles are through a jab at us. But his big move of the offseason was Eric Kendricks and bringing back Ezekiel Elliott, who they let go a few years ago, who has as much left in the tank as you do playing running back in the National Football League. I don't know. Like, honestly, this is the year the Eagles sweep them. The talent, disparity, the talent gap is just too much for the two teams. So, yeah, I think they're an afterthought as well.
Yeah, I think I honestly believe that. I know there's probably Cowboys fans out there that are like, just screaming at their maybe they're
Yeah.
laughing. I don't know what they're doing. Probably they should be asking Jerry Jones what the fuck he was doing this offseason. That's what they should be doing.
More
But
relevant question.
yeah, man, I don't know. Didn't cross my mind. Maybe I'm wrong for
But
that, but I fucking hate
maybe we
that team.
are, but we'll have to
I'm
find out
ready
the
for
hard
them to
way,
fall off that cliff.
and maybe, just
So,
maybe, I'll admit that I was wrong come that time. But it is now,
right.
drumroll please, time for our Super Bowl predictions for the 2024 season. I feel like I'm winding back the clock to this very night last year, 2023. And I made this prediction, and here's the thing, second time's a charm, okay? I would not be making this prediction if at least one half of my pick from last year gave any hope or chance of even reaching the Super Bowl. Neither did. Okay. And that gives me great hope and belief that they didn't screw me over last year and that I was just a year behind. And here we go. We have, come on now. I think it's obvious. I don't care that this is an all NFL show. We're picking the Birds over here. The Birds are going to the Super Bowl. And they're going to hoist their second Lombardi in 7 years over the New York Football Jets. That was my pick last year. Aaron Rodgers goes down 4 plays in. The Eagles go on one of the most epic collapses in Philly sports history in the last couple of weeks. They get blown out in Tampa Bay. A lot of overhaul on the Eagles roster. They're so much better on paper. That is Rodgers returning. That Jets defense it is a top 2 defense, a top 3 defense in the National Football League. And if they have a quarterback in Aaron Rodgers who doesn't need to be MVP level, MVP form, if he is just a top 10 to 12 quarterback in the league, you have a top 3 running back in Breece Hall. You have a guy in Garrett Wilson who's ready for a professional quarterback to get him the football. All of that, I do think there's an opportunity for them to make their way to the Super Bowl with the oil that I believe Buffalo's leaking, with a young Texans team in their way, an inexperienced Browns team, a Ravens team that just made it to the AFC chip last year. We know it's hard to get back. And then that leaves one team, and it's going to be the guy that's in everybody's way for as long as can be. Whether they see him or not in the AFC championship, I don't know. I would, we all assume so. But I think defensively they can hold their own against that guy, and they need a couple plays from a future Hall of Famer. So that is my official 2024 Super Bowl pick.
I love it, man. I love it. And of course, I'm not gonna create any drama here. I have the Eagles winning the Super Bowl too, man. And I know it sounds homerish. I get it. You can call me a homer if you want. I'm fine with that. This is the year that they have the team built to do it. I'm gonna take advantage, man. They're ready. They're locked.
Right, you can call me a homer if Sam Bradford was starting at quarterback for them this year.
Exactly. This is a team that we saw 2 years ago go to the Super Bowl, compete at the highest level with the defending Super Bowl champs. I ultimately have them going back for that rematch. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to try to go out here three-peat. I've said it several times on this show. I think the Kansas City Chiefs got better this offseason. How did they get better than the Cowboys did? That's aside. That's aside.
Let me ask you a question.
Doesn't matter.
Let me ask you a question. What's Jason Kelsey wearing in the booth if that's the Super Bowl? Because that's tough. At that point, it's tough. It's tough.
It is because he doesn't play for the squad anymore. But I think he's wearing his own Eagles jersey.
You think so? That would be pretty.
Yeah, but he might put his brother's jersey on.
He might rock a combination of the two. Yeah, he might rock a combination of the two, or he does nothing and just rips his shirt off at some point and just has
white t-shirt. And then Bears
something like that. Because the issue is not only is it the team you played for a decade and a half for, won a Super Bowl with, have all this allegiance to, just played your brother with this team 2 years ago. The other side, it's your brother, obviously, Doug, going to make history for a three-peat. But then the woman sitting by your side is a diehard Eagles fan. So, there's a little bit in the family as well, not just yourself.
That is true, man. That is true. It'll be interesting to see how he kind of weathers that storm if it comes across. But I'm with you. I do have the Eagles.
Let me get the scoop here from our man George sitting on the couch. George, is it true that the game got pushed back to 8:40?
It is.
Go on Twitter because find out the truth for me.
It's on FanDuel. Yeah, 8:41. I was looking at plays here, and yeah, it's starting at 8:41.
It says something like weather. Let's hope that's like official and it's not just like the next estimated time. And then there's going to be a new estimated time to 9 o'clock and then 9:15. Yeah, don't need that tonight. But
just to give you my NFC Championship game, AFC Championship, I did have Philly beating the Lions in that. We won't get that rematch with the 49ers that we want, but we'll get it with the Lions. We'll take care of them. And then I had Kansas City playing against Houston, top 2 seeds over in the AFC. So had the Mahomes putting down a new victim, CJ Stroud.
I like it, man. And those would be 2 hell of games. Those would be 2 great games on championship weekend, regardless.
Yeah, all 4 of the games that we've listed there, I would say, man.
So I agree. Anyway, brother, since we do have a little bit of extra time, we can get in. I was going to have to skip our top 10 power rankings heading into week 1 before we get to this Ravens Chiefs preview, but we can get to our power rankings now. We'll run through it pretty quickly, like we did with the coach, with the player awards and stuff. Heading into week 1, and obviously we wanted to get these in tonight instead of Sunday morning because there's 2 games and there's at least 3 or 4 teams of the 4 teams that are probably in our top 10. So we didn't want anyone to start out 0-1, look bad, and, get the opportunity to slip them out of your top 10 and be all sly. So here we go. Heading into Thursday Night Football, I had the Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning 2-time Super Bowl champions, greatest head coach, greatest tight end, greatest quarterback in the game right now. Looking to take care of business tonight. So I have them at number 1. At number 2, I give the respect to the 49ers. You represent the NFC last year. If Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williams were still holding out and they didn't know when they were going to come back, maybe they drop a slot or 2, but they're there. They're looking fully healthy. They're still uber talented. So they're number 2. And number 3, again, I'll give their respect here. I'll give it to the Baltimore Ravens, who went to the AFC Championship, was the number 1 seed last year. They added Derrick Henry. They lost some coaches. They lost some pieces on defense, but I still think they're going to be a top 5 team for most of the year this year. And then that's where the buck stops, right? That's the end of the road for giving the respect to last year's conference championship opponents. I come in with the Eagles, my Super Bowl pick, at number 4, and the Lions at number 5. Well, why did I give respect to everybody else? Because the other 3, I can actually make the argument can and will be better than the Eagles. I don't believe the Detroit Lions are better than the Philadelphia Eagles by any stretch of the imagination. I don't care what side, how many guys, Amon-Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta. Yeah, they're loaded. I have a question all year long for this Lions team, who I'm giving respect to by putting at 5. Think they're going to be really good. Think they win their division. Can Jared Goff remain that steady arm, that steady personality to distribute what they need this year that he did last year? Because we've seen the highs and the lows from Jared Goff in the NFL. And can he repeat it for a second straight year? Number 6, I do have the Houston Texans. Obviously a playoff team from last year, fully restocked. Joe Mixon, Stephon Diggs, Danielle Hunter on defense. They went out and did a lot this past offseason, only to better their odds of making a playoff run. At number 7, I had the team losing in the Super Bowl this year. That is the New York Jets. Again, one of the best defenses in football, one of the best running backs in football, a borderline top 10 star and wide receiver in Garrett Wilson. You add to that a future Hall of Famer, an NFL champion, an MVP winner in Aaron Rodgers. To me, like I said, I do think the sky's the limit if they can stay healthy and he's anything, better than he was his last year in Green Bay. Number 8, I had the Bengals. Number 9, I had the Browns. Number 10, I had the Bills. To be honest with you, 8 through 10, I can flip any which way. I really don't have a dog in that fight. I think the Browns win their division. I think they're going to be better. I'll give the edge to the Bengals to start week 1. The Bills, you can make the argument, are better than both of them. So we'll see, but that's my top 10.
I like it, man. We have a lot of the same teams, a little bit different order. I didn't give as much respect as you did to some of these teams at the beginning here. So I guess I did at the end of the day. I went Chiefs number 1, obviously respect there to the back-to-back defending champions. Once again, think they got better. So, yeah, rightfully so at number 1, even without the respect. Number 2, I went with the Ravens. I gave them a little bit of respect for how they competed with the Chiefs last year. It was a 17-10 showdown in that AFC Championship game. Really a defensive, grinded out type of situation. I like what the Ravens are doing again this year. Now, their division is really tough, so we'll see how long they can stay up there near the top. Number 3, I actually went with our Birds. I think
right.
they're going to gravitate. I think they are better than the 49ers this year, and it's simply because I think Jalen Hurts is better than Brock Purdy. If everything else is equal, I think that is the difference maker. Now, mind you, some will say the Eagles' defense unproven. We're going to find out. I'm actually quite high on their defense. We'll see. So I went with them at number 3. 49ers at number 4. They did lose, a couple pieces, had a little bit of drama. We're able to get Ayuk back. CMC coming into the season banged up, had a ton of usage last year. And that is kind of the thing I'm keeping my eye on. And this is as a CMC fantasy owner. I own him in Dynasty, my best league, the one I put the most money into. I'm watching his usage this year. Can he stay healthy the entire season like he did last year? He hasn't been able to do that as much as you would like throughout his career. Now, same thing can be said about Saquon Barkley, so I'm not using that too much as a harp on point here. But we'll see how they kind of maneuver here and come into the new season. Number 5, I went with the newer team in the Houston Texans. They got a ton of talent, man. I love what C.J. Stroud did last year. I think you had Joe Mixon, you had Stephon Diggs, you get Tank Dell back. You have Nico Collins, who ascended. Damian Pierce is another guy that gets forgotten in that backfield.
Yeah, and he's just way down the depth chart at this point.
Yeah, and that's crazy because there was a lot of people high on him coming into last year. So if he can just be any type of compliment to the offense, that's a bonus. Number 6, I went with the Detroit Lions. I think they continue on with what they started last year, which is being a perennial playoff team. Are they the highest contender in the NFC? I guess you could argue it if I have them in the NFC Championship. Sure, I would put them in maybe the top 3 to 4. I don't know. I have a hard time deciphering if I will have the Lions. Like, say, I would be more afraid of the Lions than, say, the Rams. But we get to see them square off in week 1, so that'll be fun. Number 7, I went with the Jets. I do agree with you, man. I think on paper, this is a tough team. This is one of the better teams in the NFL. You talked about the defense. They have talent at every single level of the defense. And the offense was just a quarterback away. So you get Aaron Rodgers in there. Let's see what they can do.
Right. You don't get any quarterback. You don't get Kirk Cousins.
You don't get any.
You get Aaron Rodgers. Right.
Yeah,
even at this
former
point.
MVP, former Super Bowl champion Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
Number 8, I went with the LA Rams. I think, just picking up where they left off last year, you found out about Puka Nacua, you found out about Kyron Williams. Now that offense, I think coming into this year is just going to be ready to go. The defense is a question mark, but I am so high on their offense that we'll wait and see on that defense. That gets them to number 8 here for me. Number 9, I went with the Cleveland Browns. I think defense right there. Deshaun Watson, can he be above average to good this year?
Right.
If he's above average to good,
15,
they can win their division easily and compete in the AFC. And then number 10, I did go with the overrated ass Packers, man. They're catching a lot of hype coming into the season. I do think they're a good team. I think their defense is really good. The offense, I think Jordan Love is good. I had him top 10, right? It's the weapons on the outside I'm not huge on, which is why they're not higher on my list. Josh Jacobs, I know people love that fit. I do love the fit. Can he stay healthy? Is he going to be as impactful as we've seen in the past, or is he more of what we saw last year?
And what's the complement look like, right? Because in the past, you've had Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. You move on from Aaron Jones, you bring in Josh Jacobs. Okay, upgrade, right? But A.J. Dillon goes down for the year a week ago. So what's the complement to Josh Jacobs? I don't think you're giving Josh Jacobs the ball 27, 28 times a night.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you there. So I was between the Packers and the Falcons for number 10 there. I went with the Packers, just the more proven product right now.
I like it, man. I like it. Both teams are going to be exciting. And that's the thing, right? Because a few years ago, you can look at it one of two ways, especially as an Eagles fan. We can look at it at the fact that, okay, the NFC is getting more difficult, and that sucks because, 2 years ago, we could look at, us and the Niners, and everyone else was just a 2 steps behind, right? We didn't really have any real competition for as a Super Bowl contender in the NFC. Now there's a few more, or you can look at it as football is a better product. Things mean more.
Yeah.
It's going to mean more if they get by these teams and get to a Super Bowl and potentially win a Super Bowl. So there's different ways to look at it, man. But nonetheless, I'm excited to continue to evolve those top 10 power rankings each week.
That's one of the more fun
interesting.
segments each week.
It'll be interesting to see like what the first major drop is, what the first team to get knocked out of the top 10 is.
If you had to guess, who would it be? If you had to guess.
Like right now on my top 10?
Yeah, out of all 10 teams, which one do you think? And not just drop, but like drop significantly below what we think of them right now.
Let me just, my bad, not to keep you on hold here. Let me just check this schedule real quick because I just wanted to see who was playing who. Okay, so the Browns and Bengals aren't playing each other because if they were, obviously the loser of that would get knocked down a peg. That I was looking at.
Fair enough.
But they're not
Lions
playing
and Rams.
Yeah,
Lions
so
and Rams, Eagles and Packers.
It's interesting, right? I think there's teams that are right there that have the ability to get in, like the Rams. If the Rams go to Detroit and win on Sunday Night Football, that's a big time win. That's a team that you could look to put up inside your top 10 for you, right? Pittsburgh's going to Atlanta. You know, or obviously you didn't put them in there, but that's a team you had borderline. If Pittsburgh goes into Atlanta and wins that game, you know, we'll see. If I had to guess which one, man, I'm looking at these teams at the bottom. I'm not predicting any of them to lose week 1.
Yeah, per se, right? So I guess the Packers for me, if they lose, like let's say the Eagles,
you're hoping they lose tomorrow, obviously,
right?
So,
but if it's a close game between them and the Eagles, I don't know that I'm dropping the Packers just because they lose to a team I think is the best in the NFC. Yeah. But what if the Chiefs lose to the Ravens tonight?
Look, I'll put it this way. I do think the Browns have the biggest matchup at the bottom of my list, and here's why. Even though you and I are kind of leaving them on the back burner and we're not so serious about them, the Cowboys always come with a lot of tension, a lot of hype, a lot of expectations. And if the Browns are as serious as you and I both think they are, in the dog pound, starting off week 1, you better take care of a lesser talented Cowboys team.
Yeah.
And win that ball game. So, yeah, that's going to be a big matchup for them. It's a 4:25 start. I'm assuming it's going to be the national television game on Fox. So, that'll be a lot of fun to check out. But, yeah, I would guess the Browns, man. But with that said, 2 teams that come inside of our top 10, Chiefs, Ravens, kick off the season in just about 20 minutes after this rain delay, which is just a sick joke from whatever's above. We're finally getting to kick off. And I guess it helps us. We get a little bit more time to do this and not have to really speed through the whole thing. But everyone's just itching for football to start, and we have to wait an extra 20 minutes. I know it seems like a lifetime. But Ravens head to Arrowhead. Chiefs raising the banner tonight. T Swift, your favorite person ever, is in the building already. Supporting
over under. How many times do they show her? 20.
Dude, over under. I'll set it at like 9.5. She might get double digits, especially a national televised game. Yeah, it might happen tonight. But here's my thought process on this one. So, spoiler alert: if you follow the DSM Media YouTube account, or excuse me, Twitter account, where we're streaming to you live on right now as well, I already posted some of our picks. So we are riding. At least I'm riding with the Chiefs spread tonight. I'm also laying their money line. So those picks are out there. There's a couple boosts I have laid as well. But in terms of this game and which way I was leaning, spread, total, money line, I was back and forth with it all week, all summer, and especially today, man. I just get, do I take the Ravens with the points? Do I take the Chiefs just money line because I don't know how this game's going to come down to the wire? The over-under was sitting between 46 and 47 for a while now. Which way do I lean? And I'm just reading and watching so many conflicting reports, right? Because on one hand, for the totals on this stage in the season opener on Thursday nights, this number 6, shoots under, right? So hit under. But then Lamar and Mahomes, Ravens, Chiefs head-to-head in 4 of 5 or 5 of 6 matchups, the over has killed and the under has only hit once, and it was in the AFC Championship game last January, which is obviously a slow it down defensive-minded game, so you can get that. But every other game, they shot over in the regular season. So what does that really tell me? I stayed away from the total all in all. The reason I went money line, people keep saying, and they're not wrong, if there's ever a time to get Andy, if there's ever a time to get Mahomes, it seems to be early in the year. Back-to-back Super Bowl champs. Is there a Super Bowl hangover? No Hollywood Brown tonight. they'll look at the Lions. Ask the Lions what they did to them last year when they raised the banner on Thursday night. But my gut's telling me, how long is that trend going to continue?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of where you had me thinking earlier, because I won't lie to you, man. I came into the week definitely leaning the Ravens, just kind of riding that revenge factor. You told me about the situation with, the back-to-back season openers in KC, and it's like, man, are they really going to lose both? And like I said, I do think Kansas City is better than what they were last year. I think Mahomes, you talk about the weapons. They might not be the best weapons in the world, but when it comes to Mahomes and what he was working with last year versus this year, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, not there tonight, but is on the team. Juju Smith-Schuster, Samaj P. Ryan, just a couple guys they've added to this unit, I think, make what? Oh.
Someone's at my front door. I'll be right there.
Okay. All right, got you. So the thing with me, man, just thinking about where the Chiefs are and why I kind of backed out of going completely all in with the Baltimore Ravens tonight is because of that kind of that trend. It's not to say I'm not as gung ho on the Chiefs money line either. I'm not laying that per se tonight either. I'm kind of just staying away from it. And so the route I went tonight was with this opportunity on FanDuel. There's like a 50% boost for this game when you do 3 legs on one parlay. The total odds just have to be above plus 100, so it's not too crazy. The one I was looking at right here, it comes out to plus 164 without the boost. It is, let me see what it is with the boost. Add the reward.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Plus 246 with the boost on FanDuel. What this comes out to, this is Lamar Jackson, 25 plus rushing yards, Derrick Henry, anytime touchdown, and Travis Kelce, 4 plus receptions. So just something I kind of did to kind of stay away from the game and money line. I don't know. I might get off here and get real gung ho and just lay one of these guys. If anything, I'm going to lay the Chiefs just because I'm not going against my squad here, DSM. I'm not going against my man Dylan, and I do get behind it, man. I'm just so up in the air on who's going to win this.
Yeah.
I think Chiefs at home. Chiefs better team. Chiefs lost their home opener last year when they were hanging the banner. A lot of things pointing to the Chiefs.
Technically, I know they lost to Jerry Sneed, but they got better. They brought in some weapons.
Yeah.
The Ravens lost Patrick Queen, lost some coaches.
Yeah.
Does that play a factor early on and stuff? I got people ordering Chinese food that aren't home, Scotty, ringing doorbells. That's why we keep stepping away.
I got you. And the thing with the thing to watch there with this Chiefs team and with the Ravens is, do the Ravens come out here and try to press too hard? Are they too revenge focused, right? I know Lamar talked a little bit about it. He's not focused on that right now. But it's easy to say that. You got to come out and ultimately prove it. Yeah, so I mean, 2 things I'm looking at tonight. You mentioned it, the new weapons with Mahomes. I'm looking at that. I want to see specifically Xavier Worthy. I'm curious what he can do. The other one is the 2-headed monster in that backfield for the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson plus Derrick Henry. We've never seen either one with somebody as talented as the other.
No, I agree, man. Do you know
so I'm interested to see it.
You know what just like came to mind before we wrap up, man?
Yeah.
Is normally, especially early on, you especially for other teams, so you would say the Ravens, you look at this as a barometer test, right? Like, how do we stack up? How do we look against the defending champs against this team? The issue is how many times they've seen each other. They've seen each other on the biggest stage in the playoffs in the AFC Championship just last year. Game went to the wire. I know that. But normally, in these regular season matchups, you look for, specific things. You're looking for things on how they can play a factor later on. The issue with this game specifically, and it has to do with basically every Chiefs game, is none of it matters because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if Lamar comes out and beats them 35-17 and makes a statement. It doesn't, because in January he could go into Lamar's house and beat them by 3 again. It just every year, every postseason, it just simply doesn't matter. Now, if this was the Ravens I don't know, Ravens, Texans, Ravens, Eagles, Ravens, Niners, different teams that have stuff to prove and are trying to work towards a Super Bowl, then I can make the argument things matter. When you're playing this dude, man, in the regular season, beating them, we just went to Arrowhead and beat them last year right before we collapsed. It doesn't
It doesn't matter. You're so right.
So,
That
look,
is the other side of
enjoy
things
the
there.
football game. And I'm not saying you can't take away positives, but just two things. If it really, there's no win here from the outside eye for the Baltimore Ravens. If you beat them, well, great. You beat them on opening night. You beat them in the regular season. You can't beat them in the postseason. That's going to be the storyline. And if the Chiefs beat them, Lamar simply can never beat Mahomes. Mahomes is going to be 5-1 against them in their career at this point if that happens. So there's really a lose-lose scenario. Not literally. Obviously, you want to win the game. The Ravens want to start 1-0.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I'm saying is, from anything to take forward, to take into January from this game, you can't, man. So
it doesn't really matter. That's a great ass point, because at the end of the season, you know what the Chiefs are about, man, and it's going to be really hard to knock them off, regardless of
all year last year.
Of where they're at.
They struggled for a lot of last year offensively. They went through how many weeks where they only scored 17 points, 20 points, 21 points. They lost like 3 of 4. They lost to Russell Wilson and the Broncos. Then they lost to another team. They lost to the Eagles at home. They went through a stretch, man, where they just weren't good. And then guess what? It simply didn't matter, because it's not like the offense was even lights out in the postseason. The defense was just that damn good last year for them. That's not fair.
Yeah. So, and they lose Ladarius Sneed. It's not the end of the world, man. They got talent back there still.
We will see.
They went out and replenished.
At the end of the day, this is going to be a great NFL season. I'm super excited for the content, super excited for everything. The Eagles, the gambling aspect, the fantasy football aspect, just sitting back and having it back from this time through into February. But we'll see if anyone's able to handle the Chiefs this year, and if anything looks different. But until then, we'll keep them at number 1 in our power rankings, at least for the time being. But guys, that is going to do it. We are 10 minutes away from kickoff in Arrowhead, kicking off the 2024 season. Do us a favor, do yourself a favor. If you do want to be interactive, if you do want to comment along while we are live here on Turf Talk, or live on the Faithful Fanatic Show, or DSM Pregame Live, make sure to check out the 3 YouTube channels we have here at DSM, spreading up your content. We have this one, the DSM Media Turf Talk channel. Smash that subscribe button for all of your NFL content. We have the DSM Scotty Talks channel, where Scotty Talks NBA, where that is all your NBA content. And then, of course, we have the Philadelphia YouTube channel for all things Philly sports. So make sure to subscribe. For myself, for Scotty, have a great rest of your day. I guess for tonight, it's go Chiefs. Let's go win some money, and we'll be talking to you guys tomorrow morning on the Faithful Fanatic Show.
Yes, sir. Peace, everybody.